Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the machine learning workshop in the DSGT Udemy Bootcamp. I'm so glad to have you today. So, in the previous video, we've been talking about introductory data preprocessing, and now we're going to apply our knowledge of data preprocessing to help move on to the next stage in a data science pipeline, which is modeling with machine learning. So, the learning objectives of this workshop are as follows. Number one, what is a machine learning model? Number two, classification versus regression. Number three, we're going to provide a brief survey of the many machine learning models out there. And number four, being able to evaluate the performance of your machine learning model. So let's just jump into it. So as you can see in your Deep Note workspace, you will have a couple of files here. These are the files that we'll work with. So we're going to import pandas, numpy, matplotlib, and seaboard. We've seen these libraries in workshops 2 and 3. So these should be pretty familiar to you. So we read in the Titanic train.csv file. So we read in this file, and we're going to do some basic data preprocessing for purposes of the workshop. So we're going to remove columns and rows with a lot of missing values. We're going to remove irrelevant columns like passenger ID, name, and ticket because we think that that should influence if a passenger survives or not. And we'll also do some one-hot encoding for the sex and embarked to, reduce the bias in our data set. So we have a function called clean, and this is, dropping columns with a lot of missing values, namely the cabin. We'll also drop any NaN rows, right? And we'll drop some irrelevant columns, which are passenger ID, name, and ticket. So we'll have this clean function. We're going to perform this on the data frame. And this is our resulting data frame right here. So you have survived, age. We don't see any of that ticket and passenger ID as we've dropped them. And we're going to one-hot encode the sex. So this is how you would one-hot encode it. So this is what the output would be. And then we're going to concatenate the data frame with this one-hot encoded sex column. And we're going to drop the sex column originally, right? Because that wasn't one-hot encoded. So as you see here, right, in your data frame, we will have a column for female and a column for male, which were the output from pd.get_dummies right here. And we're going to do something similar to embarked. So we one-hot encode the embarked. So C, Q, and S are your embarked values in the category. And we're going to concatenate the data frame with this embarked column that was one-hot encoded. And then we're going to drop the embark column since we don't need that. So here's our new data frame right here. So we've one-hot encoded the sex, and we've one-hot encoded the P class, the embarked column. So now that we have this data preprocessing, let's move into the next part prior to our modeling, which is called train test splitting. So when we're having a data set, right, and we're trying to do a machine learning model, we want to have some part of our data used for building the model and some part of our data used for testing the model. So think about the training set as the learning material for us to train the model. And the testing set is kind of like the final exam to test how good our model is. But the question is, how do we know how much should be in the test or how much should be in the train, right? That's a question that really depends on your problem. But luckily, scikit-learn, which is our library that we're using for training machine learning models, it's commonly abbreviated as sklearn. We have a function called the train test split function. So what we're going to do is first isolate our features from our target. So our features are essentially our input, and our target is what we want to predict or classify. So in this case, we want to classify if a passenger survives or not. So that's going to be our y, right? That's our target. And everything else but the survived will be our features. So that's why x and y are defined like this. So x is pretty much everything except the survived column, which is why we do a dot drop here. And y is pretty much the survived column, right? Now that we have our x and y, we can use the train test split function from sklearn. So we pass in our feature, our target. We can pass in a parameter called test size, which designates what percentage of our data set will go toward the test set. And shuffle checks, do you want to shuffle the rows and the examples before you do the split? So let's run this. So we see here that we have 569 rows in the training and 143 rows in the test. You can see that 143 divided by 712, that should be about 0.2. So you can test that yourself, like just double check approximately. So that takes care of our X train, X test, Y train, and Y test. So our training set is technically X train, comma Y train, and our test set is technically X test, comma Y test. So we're going to take a look at Y train here. And we're also going to do something called standard scalar, and that's going to be the topic of our next video. So till then, see you in the next one.